Hello everyone, welcome back to my C# programming language video series. Before moving to the next chapter, please make sure to subscribe me and like this video. In this chapter, let's learn about exception handling in programming. First of all, let's take a look on what is exception handling. Exception handling is a concept in programming which we can use to manage runtime's errors of application. When an application is running, if any runtime exception occurs, it will try to crash the application. With the use of exception handling, we can avoid the application crashing in this kind of situations. This is the basic code structure when handling exception. First, it has the try section and the catch section and the final section. Inside this try section, you can write the code that you want to be executed, and then the catch statement section with the exception type to catch, and write the code how you want to handle the exception, and the finally code section. Even your code will execute it or catch after an exception, the code inside this final section will execute. Let's see some basic exceptions can handle in programming. Let's type the basic exception handling code structure, which is try and add curly brackets and then write the catch statement and again curly brackets and then the finally keyword and again curly brackets. Inside this catch statement, you can define the exception type that you want to catch. If there isn't any specific exception type that you want to catch, you can write exception keyword which catch any type of exception that will cause when application running, and then we'll write a console.write line and print the exception pass from here. In the finally section, we can write Let's try some basic code like int num1 equal 5 and again int num2 equal num1 divide by 0, and let's execute this application. Here you can see it will cause an exception when a number is divided by 0. So as here we have catch the exception throw from this code line and print it on the console. This is the exception that you can see. After running this code and catching the exception pass through this code, finally it will call the code section inside this finally and have printed on the console. Instead of this global exception, we can add another exception handling method as catch and again curly brackets. Here we can catch the exception as divide by 0 exception and console.write line application. This is the exception caused when divided by 0. Again, let's run this application. And here you can see it prints this is the exception caused when divided by 0. As when running these code segments, it will cause a runtime error because we cannot divide a number by 0. As our exception type is divide number by 0, it will catch through this exception instead of this global exception. And finally it runs the code in this final section. Let's add another code segments as int num equal 1, 2 and 3, and then I am trying to access as num 5. Here you can see in this array it has only 3 elements, but I'm trying to access the elements in index 5. As there is no element for index 5, it will cause an exception here. So let's try, and here you can see it prints an exception as the index out of range exception, which caused because we are trying to access an index which is out of this array. So this exception type was not divided by 0, so it will not catch through this section, so it passed to the global exception handling section and it will print it on the console. Again we can add another catch section as catch, and we can catch the exception as index out of range exception, and again print this exception caused with arrays. And let's restart this. Here you can see now the exception was catched through this catch section and prints this exception caused with array and the final code section in this final section. So simply that's how to handle exceptions in programming using try-catch statements. Instead of these mentioned exception methods, there are some other several types you can catch like this. If you have no idea about the exception type that can cause through the code, you can use this global exception type. So now, as the final chapter of this video series, let's take a quick look on how to debug an application created with C# programming in Visual Studio Code. To debug this application, I am using the code section that I have used in method overloading section. Debugging an application is going through each steps of an application while running. Mainly, by debugging an application, we can find the errors or the exceptions caused by application. This video series I am using Visual Studio Code Editor. If you want to debug this application, you can add a breakpoint in this left line at any line that you want to stop at. Then you have to start the application. Once you have started the application, you can see the application has stopped at where you have kept the breakpoint. Also, I've kept another breakpoint in here. Here you can see the button shows as continue because the application running has paused in the point that we have kept the breakpoint. Once we click on the continue button, the application starts to run again, and again it stopped at the point where the next breakpoint available. If I click the continue button again, you can see the output will print as there is no other breakpoint I have kept in this application. Again, let's restart this. You can see here again it stopped at the line number 30. When debugging an application, you can go through line by line using this step over button. Instead of clicking this button, also you can use the F10 button to go line by line. So now my application has stopped at this line 30, and then I click on this step over button. You can see it has moved to the next line, which is 31. If I click it again, you can see it has again moved to the next line. Now it has stopped at the code which called the function addition of this object calculate. Assume now I want to go inside of this function. To go inside of a method, you can use this step into button, or else you can use F12 button. So once I click on it, you can see now the application has moved to this function called addition. Again, if I step over, it goes to the next line. Now assume without moving to the next line, I want to get out from this function. For that, you can use this step out button, or else shift plus F12 button. Once I click on it, again the run point of the application has sent to this line which I stepped into the function. So let's press continue, and here you can see it has printed again. Now let's debug this whole application. Let's restart this again. So this is the starting point of our application, and it's stopped here, and I click on the step over button and it moved to the next line. Now I want to move to this function called addition, so I press the step into button, and you can see the running point has moved to this function, and again I click on the step over and again step over button, and now it has go through this function. Let's see what happens if I click the step over button again. After going through this function and click on the step over button, it again came to the same position where it started, and then again I click on the step over button and then it moved to the next line. Also I want to go to this function again, so I press the step into button. So now I am in here, and when you hover on this parameter I, you can see it has passed value 2.3, and for the y value has passed as 4.1. So then I step over again. Here is the last line of our application, and if I click on the step over again, you can see it will print the output of this application, and it has completed the running. So simply that's how debugging works in Visual Studio Code for C# programming language. So finally we have come to the end of our video series on C# programming language. According to our agenda, we have gone through each of these topics in this video series. So far in this video series, I have did a simple introduction of C# programming language and how to install Visual Studio on your computer, and how to write a simple application with C# and the basic concepts of C# programming language, and functions, object-oriented programming, exception handling and debugging. So we have went through from basic to advanced concepts of C# programming language, which helps you so much as a programmer. So that's all for our this video series, and let's meet again with another video series. If you are willing to learn any area of programming, add a comment in comment section, and make sure to subscribe me and like these videos.